we are going to factor, what do we do if we have fractions or decimals? Strategy right here. We're going to factor out the fraction or the decimal. I find life is easier working with fractions rather than decimals, but we can do it either way. Okay? So in the first one, me personally, I would change 1.5 to a fraction 3 over 2x, and I would change the 0.5 to a fraction of 1/2. If you change it to fractions, it's really easy to see what the denominator is, and it's really easy to see which fraction you can pull out. In this case, the denominator is a 2, so I'm going to want to pull out a common factor of 1/2. This is going to cause your brain to think a little bit, because there's not a 1/2 in an x, there's no 1/2 in the x squared. What would be here so that if I thought 1/2 times whatever is here has to be x squared? There would have to be a 2 there. Excellent. 1/2 times a 2 would give me just 1. So there would have to be a 2 there. The second one, if I pull out the 1/2, right? And if you think about when you're multiplying by a fraction, you multiply tops and the bottoms. Well, the bottom fraction here is going to have something over 1. You don't have to write it. What would be on the top? It would be a 3 over 1. Most likely you would just write 3. Can you see if you pulled a 1/2 out of negative 3 over 2x, you'd just be left with negative 3. And then if I pull a 1/2 out of a 1/2, right, again, this is what we're thinking all the way through, what would have to go in this last space? So a 1/2 times something equals a 1/2. 1. Beautiful. And what this strategy does is it gets rid of having to think hard with fractions. Now we're back to regular numbers. And the one they gave us is actually, in my opinion, one of the easiest ones in the world to factor.
Excuse the interruption. Could all grade 9 and 10 who did not complete their course selections please go to B5? All grade 9 and 10 who have not completed course selections, go to B5. Thank you.
In my opinion, this is one of the easiest ones in the world to factor for the following reason. In order to get 2x squared, you don't have a choice. It has to be 2x and x. Then you look at your last number. Your last number is 1. Also with whole numbers, you don't have a choice. The only whole numbers that multiply to 1 are 1 and 1. So we're almost done without having to think at all. The last thing we have to decide, are the signs going to be positive or negative? Well, we need our outside and our inside to make negative 3. So I'm going to have negative 2 minus 1. It's going to give me negative 3. Quickly multiply this out in my head to check. It works. And this is factored completely. Yes?
Would we distribute the fraction of this to get rid of it, since it's not really a fact?
It's not, I would leave it like this, but you're wondering if you wanted to. He's saying, if I could distribute this 1/2 in, can you see 1/2 times 2x would be x minus 1/2 x minus 1. You could write it like this, but I would prefer keeping the 1/2 out front. If we can keep our factors with whole numbers, it's going to be nicer. Okay? Next. See, I have a denominator of a 1/3. I'm going to have to pull out that 1/3. What would would be here? So 1/3 times it gives me x squared. There would have to be a 3x squared. Second one is easy. If I pull out a third, I would be left with minus 17x. And then here, 1/3 times what gives me 2? 6. Right? 6 divided by 3 is 2. Taking out a 1/3 is like thinking dividing. 1/3 times 6. And then now I can't pull out a common factor. This one's a little bit harder, but the 3x, that's easy. There's only one option with whole numbers. It has to be 3x and x. But the 6, we have options. 3 and 2, which will be different than 2 and 3. As soon as you have a number out in front, 3 and 2 is now different than 2 and 3. Could also be 1 and 6 or 6 and 1. You have 4 options. If you are stuck, you write out all 4 of them and multiply them out. One of them should work. If none of them work, you've definitely just made a mistake. But you're going to get good at the mental math to be able to do some of this in your head. I need 17. Right? Can you see if you put a 3 here, it'll give you 9 and 2. Not enough. To get 17, maybe if I put the 6 here, that gives me 18 and 1. 18 and 1 would make 17. And now I need a negative 17. So I'm going to make my 18 negative and my 1 positive. Multiply it out, double check, make sure everything works. All right, questions for this one? And I'll give you some time now. 9, 10, 11, and 18.